once again perhaps being relived. So many coming out on the streets. You're seeing those candlelight vigils, many in expression of solidarity for the family and other such victims. So many stories we've heard over the last year. The Delhi Braveheart's ordeal and her very painful death resulted in a fast-track court convicting and sentencing 4 of the accused to death. A 5th accused hanged himself inside jail earlier in the year. The 6th was a minor. He has been sentenced to 3 years at a remand home. Now, the outrage did prompt the government to some action. It brought in a tougher anti-rape law. But the question remains, and those questions being asked by so many, and they were asked a year ago, as you see in those pictures, how much really has changed. Over the next hour, we're going to try and get you some answers to those questions. We also want you to take a look at how
people's reaction. I think we have to take that into consideration when we look at change. I think
right.
Now we are talking about more investment, and I think the biggest piece, Suhashini, is to make sure that we don't slack in asking accountability from our duty bearers.
A well-made point. That burden of the shame has certainly moved. People are coming out and speaking. And that's what's given strength to other victims, if you like, survivors, if you like. Let's take a question in from Virendra Seth. Remember, our number is on your screens. Do call in. We want to hear what you think and what your question really is about the future. Virendra Seth from Gurgaon, tell us what you think.
Yeah, my question is that, I mean, basically, I think that whatever is happening to women today, I think partly it is women's problem too, because, I mean, I'm the only son of my parents, you know, but I was never taught to treat women as equal, you know.
Right.
And I think the mothers.
That's a very honest statement, Mr. Seth. That's an honest statement that you were not taught to respect women as equals.
Mothers favor their sons more as compared to the daughters, you know.
Right.
And I think the mothers have a lot of responsibility to teach their sons to respect the sisters equally, you know.
Sure.
And they to also respect other women equally, because I was taught that the women basically are inferior. They have their own.
So you're saying the change starts from home. Thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Virendra Seth. One more caller from Hyderabad, Divya, joining us. Divya.
Hi, I totally agree with what Virendra Seth just mentioned. I come from a background where, we've got my mom, my grandmom all working. And I'm not the only child. I've got a brother as well. And very fortunately, my parents have imbibed the fact that, telling my brother constantly that your sister is also equal. If you're going to get this, she's going to get that too. So I think it has to start from the family. And very importantly, even our ministers somewhere down the line, the way they conduct themselves on a public platform is very, very appalling.
Sure.
And there was one incident where a minister slapped a woman just because she asked him if her problem will be solved or not on a higher volume. And I think that itself goes to say that how unfortunate that our country is so regressive.
Sure.
They have very biased feelings. It's been a year, but very unfortunate. Everything is done in papers.
All right. Divya, thanks so much. We take your point. Sonali Khan, very quickly, does it really begin not just at home, but very specifically, does the change begin when a mother educates her son?
The reality is that women and men buy into the same logic. We have done research, and it was very clear that the same argument that is presented, that women also justify violence. They buy into this whole patriarchal norm that is there. So you have to begin by both changing mindsets of men and women. That's very essential, and it's a well-made point. I think it's great for him to stand up and say this, that, this is how I was brought up.
Absolutely.
And that is where the change really begins, is
All
that
right.
we acknowledge.
Another place perhaps where we saw that change really beginning was exactly a year ago, there in places like Jantar Mantar in the national capital, where young men and women came out shoulder to shoulder and refused to leave despite police action, despite the tear gas, and said they very specifically wanted the change. Let's go across to Karma Paljor, who's there at Jantar Mantar. Karma, just give us a sense of what people are saying 1 year on. Has anything changed?
Well, Suhasini, what has not changed is the young men and women who were there, who fought the police. They are still here. In fact, I'm joined by students of the Delhi Paramedical and Management Institute. They are perhaps of the same kind of institute where the Braveheart was. They've come here to pay homage. Let's put in a question to those who are here. Ma'am, 1 year on, do you think things have changed? The laws have become stronger, but have things really changed?
Well, I think that even after a year on, the things have not changed, because even after the 16th December last year case which came to light, I think after that also there have been several cases which have come to the light. And I think things have really not changed, and we require more stringent laws to act upon the accused in these kind of cases.
Right. You were asking for justice. You were shouting justice, justice. What do you mean by that?
By justice, I mean security. Security of every girl.
Okay. So, what do you mean by justice? आप justice, justice बोल रहे थे, पर सही मायने में आपको justice कब मिलेगा?
Actually, juvenile also should be punished equally. We think that he is equally, culprit, and he should not be. I mean to say, every culprit is the same.
Right. So points there, Suhasini. Especially juveniles, if they have, of course, perpetrated a ghastly crime like that, even they should be punished. I guess when they scream for justice here, these are the important issues that they would raise up to the nation.
Absolutely, and they're being raised there as we speak, there in the capital, but also in other cities across the country. Tonight, Aparna Bhatt, do you want to answer that question, very specific, coming from that young girl, saying it is time to acknowledge that even juveniles who commit crimes like this must be tried as adults?
Yeah, I will respond by, I don't agree with her though. You see, we have acknowledged and accepted the fact that every person up to the age of 18 is a child. Now, I don't for a moment doubt that certain children in a particular age group may be committed crimes which are more heinous. But when we have brought in a criminal justice system which is acknowledging that children need a different kind of treatment, and that treatment is primarily for them to have some kind of a reformative process and not a punishment process.
And your opinion hasn't changed over the last year, because the government is on the brink of perhaps thinking about a rule like that.
Maybe the government is thinking about it. My opinion has not changed, because a child is a...
Welcome back on Agenda for Change. We're taking your questions, your comments on all that has happened and all that has changed and all that hasn't really in the last year since the Delhi Braveheart was brutally raped and then died. We're going to go across to Mumbai now. Joining us, Smita Nair Raskina. Smita, of course, it was Mumbai that in fact changed how people thought, even after we thought that so many mindsets had changed after the Delhi Braveheart case, and then to see that Shakti Mills gang rape case really shook so many across the country.
That's right, Suhasini. In fact, I am at the Shakti Mills compound where, in a sense, Mumbai was shamed, and we have several of those activists from Mumbai who are here attempting to what they're calling reclaiming the night for women. I have three very specific questions here from young Mumbaikars. I'm going to begin with you, Bhavya. You have a question here for Sonali Khan. What is it that you want to ask her?
My question is, so far we have seen organizations working towards empowering women, giving them the strength to report the crimes against them, and we're seeing a rise, so that's great. But I want to ask, are we ready today in a position to ask men what they think about the crimes committed against their wives, sisters, mothers, daughters? What do they feel about these issues? And when are men going to take responsibility for their actions? When do we address them and the perpetrators, etc.?
That, of course, is for Sonali Khan. A quick question, Ankita, you have for Abha Bhatt, I believe.
Yes. I really want to ask, till now all the legislative reforms we are talking about are curative in nature. Why can't we have some legislation which actually prevents these crimes from happening? Something like the Dakshata Samiti being formulated into a legislation.
Right. Ruben, what about you?
I think, we really need to do away with this tokenism, because you really have what is really called as lack of political will. For example, soon after the Nirbhaya incident, in the budget, you had the UPA government announce a Nirbhaya fund, and 1 year subsequent to that, you don't have funds being allocated, nor you have activities being undertaken. So perhaps the government should, instead of a knee-jerk reaction, actually say, look, it's going to take time, and actually get their act together than just, have these token approaches.
All right. So, Hasini?
after everything we've seen, particularly Ruben Mascarenhas speaking from his own experience, Smita, does he think that mindsets have changed? That seems to be the big question everyone's asking today.
Right, Ruben, the question to you, while there's a broad agreement that the silence surrounding sexual violence has been shattered, have mindsets actually changed, and you've worked with several of these cases?
Yes. I mean, when we started off with the Keenan Rubin murders and zero tolerance campaign, after that, it was limited to Mumbai and Maharashtra. Subsequent to that, we've really seen high incidence of reporting, and that's happened because there has been awareness. That's happened because people have started talking about these subjects into their drawing rooms, within their own circles, and I think yes, definitely mindsets have begun to change. But of course, there's a long way to go.
Right, there's no empirical evidence, anecdotal only. So Hasini, the only data, of course, available here from the city of Mumbai specifically is where some policemen are estimating 129% increase in reported rapes in the city of Mumbai itself. As many as 8 gang rape cases, remember, being reported in the last 8 months alone.
And just that figure can be so disheartening. Sonali as well as Aparna, I do want to get your answers on all those questions, but I want to take 2 callers right now. Joining us right now is Randeep Kamal. Randeep?
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Hello. Good evening.
Yes, go ahead. Good evening.
You were talking about juvenile thing and change in attitude, etc. While the emphasis on family is okay, family values should be imparted to the child, but there's something called the responsibility of the school also, because most of the growing up period, impressionable age, is spent in schools.
All right.
And that is where the attitude of a child is molded.
That's a very fair point. Thanks so much for calling in, Randeep. Weber Prashant is also joining us from Lucknow. Weber?
Yes, I'm speaking. Yes.
Please go ahead.
See, what is happening is all these extreme laws are straining the relationship, normal sexual relation between ordinary human beings also. Now, I travel all over Southeast Asia. There is hardly any news about rape. Reason being, male prostitution as well as female prostitution is totally free and easily available. That is the only way to end rape and all that issue in our country.
Well, I can't say I agree with your perspective, but after the Delhi braveheart gang rape. Amit Gupta, tell us what you think.
Hi, good evening to the IBN team as well as the panelists. See, I have a very valid, there are 2 points that I want to make. One is that nothing has changed, okay, and this is my own view. There are so many dark patches which are there in my city. After evening, when you're going in a car or a bike, a woman is going on a two-wheeler, it's very unsafe. There are so many barricades at the city exits which the police puts on weekends. Savagely killed in front of public. That's when the fear will be instigated in their minds. Also, the government should, start acting before the common man starts taking the law in their own hand, as well as media should play a very important role.
All right.
See, I didn't want to see the Aam Aadmi Party forming the government with LG meeting carried out for one day. The Corpus Fund, which was released in February 2013, it's being unused. What's the media doing about that? That's my question to media.
Lots of questions in there, Amit Gupta. Of course, you do understand that the law has no provision for savage killings or savage punishments of any kind. I need to take another call from Shivanand Bharti from Bangalore. Shivanand?
Madam, my name is Shivanand Bharti. I'm from Bangalore. I'm a spiritual master. I'm 60 years of age. See, there are 2 things. In our country, these facts speak about the worshipping ladies. So that's not happening. So 2 things. See, there is love and fear.
Spoken about the mindset changing. The fact is that a year ago, the hope that came from all those protests and all the vigils and all the reactions really to the brutal gang rape was that something was changing in society. I'd like you to ask some of the people with you if a year later those hopes have been dashed, or do they feel actually that the fact that society came out as it did a year ago has brought about some change?
Yes, Swasini, I've been speaking to these youngsters and the change is there, but it's going to take time. But the change with them has started. Some of them have questions and you should listen to them. What's your question?
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन है जो है घरेलू हिंसा होती है, इससे बच्चों पर बहुत प्रभाव पड़ता है. जैसा बच्चे घर में सीखेंगे तो ऐसा ही बाहर जाकर करेंगे, और जब करेंगे तो ऐसा ही देखते हैं और ऐसा ही माहौल बनता है.
Okay, so domestic violence is what he's worried about. What's your question?
My question is from Parliament. Why the political parties give the tickets
to a rapist person. It is a very bad for our country because our country survive on temple of our nation. We are living in a democratic country.
Okay, but I think that is changing now with the new laws.
I have a question to the government, the politicians. When their family mates go outside, they have their security, their bodyguards. And what about the girls who are from normal families? They should also be provided with this.
Equal security
Yes.
for everyone.
My question is on the judicial reforms. Last year when this happened, there was a huge discussion and discourse about the judicial reform in studio panel discussion, in public discourse also. Apart from the selective application of fast track court, how much advancement has been made on this front, on judicial reform?
Right, so Asri, these are the questions that are coming from here.
Absolutely, Karma. Thanks so much for joining us. Of course, those